How's everyone doing today? I see we have a couple of people signed in already. So hello to Miss Bowley and the Kims, and Miss Kimmel and Miss Pim. I see Orrin and Adam are here as well. And Miss Knighton is also here as well. And Miss Clark and Miss Jordan. So yeah, so it's gonna be an excellent time that we're gonna have. We're gonna start momentarily in about, 1 minute. And in the meantime, if you guys can do me a favor, just so we know who's here and what levels we're speaking with, if you can, in the chat, just say what instrument you play and then a song that you've been working on. So write what instrument you play and a song that you have been working on. And we have a lot of pianists in here today, so that's going to be exciting. Got a cello player as well. All right, so we're going to get started here. And what we're going to do, so we have Miss Janie here.
Hello,
so
everyone.
Her. And if you can't see her, please let me know. And right now I'm sharing my screen, so you cannot see me right now. But we're going to be talking about practicing. So everything that we're talking about today is practicing. And when myself and Miss Janie put this together, we thought there's so much when it comes to practicing. So much that we decided that we're going to break this up into 2 sections. And this is going to be a great session for children. It's going to be a great session for parents, and it's going to be a great session for teachers, because we're going to, in this, talk about the basics of practicing. And then in the next section that we're going to do on Monday, we're going to talk about games. So I hope that you guys like games, because we're going to be talking a lot about that. So today, we're talking about goals. We're talking about dividing and conquering. We're talking about supercharging your brain. So I'm going to teach you guys how to be a superhero. And we're going to be talking about tools you can use and writing down your progress. So before we get started, I have a question that's going to be on your screens here. And the question is, do you like practicing? So we're going to give about 10 seconds for this. And the question is, do you like practicing? It looks like kind of is taking an early lead. Someone says absolutely not. That makes sense. Some people love it. That's good. We got one more person to vote. I'm gonna stop it. All right, good. So now this is the group that we have here. So most of us say kind of, and we love it. And then we have a few people that say not really, and someone that says no, absolutely not, which is absolutely okay because we're gonna see if we can change your mind during these sessions. So we're gonna show you how fun practicing can actually be. So with that being said, my question to you is, or not question, sorry, what is practicing? So when we're talking about practicing, I'm talking about the verb practice. So you're performing an activity or an exercise, so a skill. You're doing it repeatedly, which means you're doing it over and over, or you're doing it regularly in order to improve or maintain one proficiency. So what that means is you keep doing it over and over again so you can remain good at it. So an example of this is if you've been on a sports team. So I'm not sure if any of you guys ever played on a soccer team or a basketball team or a baseball team. But when I think about soccer, or even basketball. So we think about basketball, your coach usually divides you up. So you don't just go out there and start shooting the basketball and playing a game. So sometimes he makes you run. Sometimes he makes you do free throw practicing. Sometimes he makes you just shoot from the same spot for 20 shots. And so that's what we're talking about here. So practicing on sports team is what you're doing at home. So a scrimmage, and so for those of you that don't know what a scrimmage is, that is kind of a fake game. So it's not a real game, but you can learn a lot about yourself through a scrimmage. So it's like a game, but not really. That's what I would call the lesson. So the lesson or the rehearsal is the scrimmage. So you're practicing at home. So that's the sports practicing as a team. And then the scrimmage, sometimes you do a scrimmage against another team. And that's what the lesson feels like. Now the game is real. When you do the game, that's what the concert feels like. Are there any of you out there that get a little bit nervous for the concert? That makes sense because even LeBron James gets nervous for the game. And we have a few young people here, and we have a few people who have done this before. It's the playoffs. So the playoffs is when you're doing a competition or when you're doing an audition. So when you're doing something like that, that's what we're calling the playoffs. So I want you guys to think of practicing like that. So especially those of you that watch any types of sports. So if you have practicing, that's you practicing at home. The scrimmage, that's going to be you at the lesson. The game is you at the concert, and playoffs is what we're all going to look forward to when we're doing competitions, or well, not all of us. So some of us will look forward to competitions and auditioning. I'm going to tell you some things that practicing is not. Practicing is not starting from the beginning of the song and playing until the end of the song. So if your parents have ever told you that is not practicing, they are absolutely correct. Another thing practicing is not is starting from the beginning and playing until the end of the song. So once again, if your parents have told you this or your teachers, they are absolutely correct. And the last thing I want to say about practicing is not starting from the beginning of the song and playing until the end of the song. I really want this point to drive home. So practicing is the repeating of one thing, not the whole song. So why do we practice? So practicing is very important because I want you to imagine 3 people. So with the 3 people, we have person number 1 who practices 30 minutes, 5 days a week. That's this person right here. Person number 2, they practice for 60 minutes. That's a lot of minutes, but they only practice once a week. Person number 3, they're inconsistent. So what inconsistent means is sometimes they practice, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they practice 30 minutes, sometimes they practice 60, sometimes they practice 15, but they don't do it every day. So 30 minutes, they do it 5 days a week, which is almost every day. 60 minutes, they do it once a week, and inconsistent just does it whenever they feel like, or right before the concert because they're trying to cram in everything. So what happens is on Monday, 30-minute practice, person number 1. Person number 2, they practice 60 minutes. So you can see that they're a little bit ahead here. Person number 3, they practice for about 30 minutes. So then on Tuesday, person number 1 practices 30 minutes, but no one else practices. So on Wednesday, person number 1 practices for their 30 minutes. No one else practices. On Thursday, person number 1 practices for 30 minutes. Person number 2 does not practice because they only practice once a week. But person number 3, they said, okay, I really got to catch up here. So they practice for a whole hour, 60 minutes. Now they're tired, and on Friday, they don't practice. So you can see how much more person number 1 has learned over person number 2 and person number 3. So then the next week happens. Person number 1 practices on Monday. Person number 2 practices on Monday because that's when they practice. Person number 3 practices for 15 minutes on Monday. Person number 1, you guessed it, practiced their 30 minutes. Person number 2 does not practice. Person number 3 does not practice. Then the next day, person 1 practiced their 30 minutes. You can kind of see that this person is, if this was a race, they're kind of winning. So then person number 3 practices for about 30 minutes. And then the next day, there goes to 30 minutes again. And then person number 3 gets 2 days in a row. So this is a visual representation of what happens if you can just practice 30 minutes 5 days a week. And notice, I'm not saying every day. Even if you practice 20 minutes for 5 days a week, you will become better than the person that only practices once a week and practices for 2 hours. So you got to divide that up a little bit. Oh, had one more day of practice. Can't forget that. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Janie, who's going to be talking about setting goals.
Hello, everyone. So good to see 16 people, if not more. I know there's more people behind those screens. So welcome. So excited you're joining us. I'm excited about talking about setting goals because I know for me, I was that student who had a very hard time being a consistent practicer. So like Kirk said, I was that inconsistent last minute practicer. I knew my lesson was the next day. That's when I put in all my time in my practice. And I will tell you, if you learn this early on and you learn it now, it will save you a lot of anxiety. It'll even make you more excited for the concerts and the performances, which is the best part of playing an instrument. And so setting a goal, I feel like that is one of the most important things before you even start a piece. So a lot of times we tend to want to quickly learn the piece as fast as we can and not efficiently. And so setting a goal helps kind of slow down and say, what do I want to do in this piece? And so for those of you, grab your notebook. Anytime you go to sit down and work on a piece, I encourage you to have a notebook to write down what your goals would be. So whether that is to play it at a certain tempo. So if it's a fast piece, you want to be able to play it at a allegro type speed. If it's to play with more dynamics, so if you're working with your teacher on dynamics, to include playing it forte, piano, all those dynamics that are in a piece. If it's to play both hands, whatever that is. So whatever level you are, this goes with all of those levels. So writing down your goals. So for me, if I'm learning this little waltz, I have this little waltz right here. I want to learn it at 120 beats per measure. So the quarter note is 120. So say if that's one of my goals, my second goal would be to play hands together. So I would write that down, hands together. So setting a goal, just getting down what you would want in the piece is important. And as you're going through it, being able to essentially see and have it written down. So when you're working on it, you're able to see this is a goal of mine and you're not overseeing it or you're not going past it. And so with that, for example, this waltz I have, if I were to just play it really fast, and it would be incorrect, I could look at my goals and say, I want to play it slower. I want to play it with dynamics. I want to play it with the long tempo. So writing those things down, setting a goal is very important. Also with that, when you go to sit down at a piece, kind of listening to it. I don't know how many of you have a habit of listening to the piece beforehand, but that helps me set a goal. So when I get excited about a piece, usually it's because I've heard it before, and that's like a goal. I want to learn this piece. And once I get to that piece, I listen to it. I say, I want to play it like this. I want to play it with emotion. I want to play it at the correct tempo, so it's not fast and slow at the wrong parts. And so I would listen to the piece and write down what your goals would be and what you're hearing and how you would want to play it. And so I'll give it back to Kirk. So setting a goal is important. Use your notebook to help you with your teacher, setting the goal of what you want that week, and make the goals small at a time. So even if it's to learn the first few measures of the piece or the first section, you could start at little bits at a time.
All right, thank you for that. And I want everyone in the chat, I want you to give suggestions of goals that you can make. And so something that's really cool about us here on these workshops is that we have some people that have been playing for 1 year. We have some people that have been playing for 5 years. We have some people that are in book number 1. We have some people that are in book number 10. So we are all going to help each other. And we even have teachers here. We have parents as well. So I want you guys to write in the chat something that you can use as a goal. So Miss Janie gave some examples of playing at a certain tempo. So that would be a goal. Making sure that you're not bumping other strings or bumping other keys. That would be a goal as well. So let's see some of those goals and suggestions come through. So now I'm going to talk about dividing the music. When it comes to dividing the music, you can divide pieces into measures. So that if you're a beginning student, that's where you're starting. So you have a piece, it's probably 4 measures, it's probably 8 measures. It is perfectly okay to divide it into 1 measure at a time. And if you can get 1 measure down on Monday during your 10 or 20 minutes of practicing, and then on Tuesday, get another measure, now you have 2. And then the next day, now you have 3. For people that are a little bit more advanced, you can divide it into lines. And I'm going to show you guys some concrete examples of that one, and into sections as well. So lines and sections are something that you can divide your pieces into. Now, we also have some celebrities here on the screen, and we have those students that have to divide it into big sections because their songs are 2 pages. If you have a song that's 2 pages, can you write something in the comment section and say, I have 2 pages in my songs? So if you have those big type of pieces, I think I saw that someone is playing the Haydn cello concerto. Was that Abraham? I think Abraham is playing the Haydn cello concerto. He needs to start thinking into expositions, developments. He has to start thinking recapitulations. He has to start thinking key changes. So what he's doing is taking the small pieces, everything that he learned to learn those small pieces, he's now doing it in big pieces. And I see that Israel said he's playing the Bach cello suite prelude. Oh, congratulations, Israel. So he's going to learn how to break that down into sections. So let me show you guys an example of this. This is a song called Go Tell Aunt Rhody. So I'm going to use this song because it's only 1 line of music. So for all the pianists that are in the house right now, I'm doing 1 line to cater to everyone that's here. And when you do a song like Go Tell Aunt Rhody, my big thing is listening. So I like to listen to songs. So I listen to the song, and if you listen to it, you'll notice, and some people are good at just looking at this and telling. Can you guys tell me which 2 lines are the same? So out of this whole song, which 2 lines are the same? So we have line number 1, line number 2, and line number 3. So which 2 are the same? All right, good. So you guys are excellent. When I was younger, I could not look at music and figure this out. Please don't laugh at me. So now that you know that line number 1 and line number 3 are the same, you miraculously find out that this song technically is only 2 lines long. So part of, oh man, Abraham just laughed at me. So part of knowing how to divide and conquer is that it makes the music easier in the first place. So even if you have a song that's 2 pages, I pretty much can guarantee that some of those sections are the same. It's usually the first part and the last part. Now, if you know how to divide and conquer, I like to put alphabets in the beginning. So for this first line, I'll put an A. For the second, and I put the A because it's the first thing that happens. For the second line, I put a B because it's the second thing that happens. And for the third line, I put an A. The reason I put an A, it's because it's the same as the first line. So look at your music right now and see if you have any sections, any lines, any part of it that repeats. And if you do, in the chat, just write, I do. Israel found his. All right, excellent. Mr. Aguirre found his as well. Now, I'm gonna go to another song. So this song is called Long, Long Ago. So with Long, Long Ago, what happens is it's a little bit longer. So I want you guys to tell me which 2 lines are the same. And for the more advanced students, such as Israel and Abraham and Jenna, I want you to tell me what letters would I put in front of these lines. So what letters do you think I would put in front of these lines? Oh, this is getting interesting. All right. I like the comments that are coming through here. All right, so I'm going to show you guys something. Part of the reason that this song is tricky is because line number 1, line number 2, and line number 4 all start the same. However, only line number 2 and line number 4 end the same. Can you guys see my little arrow cursor here? If you can, just write yes. All right, good. So this right here is why I would say that line number 2 and line number 4 are the same. So if you guessed line number 2 and line number 4, give yourself 2 snaps. All right. So for those of you that then said that I would label this A, and then B, and then C, and then the last line would be B, that is what I would call those the same as well. So give yourself 2 snaps. So that's something really good and really cool that you can talk to your teacher about. And if you're a teacher, that's something good that you can use to show your students it's not that hard. It's not that long. This second line is the same as the 4th line, which means if we can get this second line down, we have learned half of the song. All right, so right now I'm going to take a little break and see if you guys have any questions. Oops. We have in the bar there, it says Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can put your questions in Q&A, and then we'll be sure to answer your questions throughout the day, and then, or without the 30 minutes that we have left. And then also we might ask some people to ask their questions live. So that'll be cool too. So far, we've talked about goals, 2 snaps for that. We've talked about dividing and conquering, 2 snaps for that. And now we're going to talk about supercharging your brain. I'm going to warn you, I'm going to get kind of nerdy on this one. So this one is this cool concept. But oh, my poll, how can I forget? But before I get there, I'm going to ask you, What is the first thing that you should do before you practice? Let me get my poll number 2. Where's my poll? We could put it in the comments right now. Oh, here it is. So here's the first thing that you should do before practice, or yeah, before you practice. What is the first thing you should do? It's up on the screen. We got 1 person down. We got 2. All right. I think someone is mistaken. I think someone put get a cookie by accident. All right. Excellent. So do we have 2 more people to vote? And 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Good. So as we can see, write down your goals is going to be something that you should do before you the first thing that you should do before you practice. I noticed that 2 people gave 2 good answers. So someone said setup. And so if that means get all your materials and such, yes, that'd be a good thing to do as well. And tune your instrument. I'm going to say, even before you tune your instrument, write down your goals. So make sure that you have your goals. So if you have to get the pencil and the notebook before you start practicing, and that's what you call setup, I agree with you. But make sure that you write down your goals. All right, let me stop sharing. All right, here we go. So now we're going to talk about supercharging your brain. If you've seen the movie Megamind, please say clap, clap, or snap, snap, rather, if you've seen Megamind. So Megamind is a documentary about a villain who turned into a superhero. And so whenever I think of supercharging my brain, I think of Megamind and having a big brain. Now, here's where we get nerdy. Your brain has all these neurons and neurotransmitters and receptors and stuff. So what happens is when you do things, your brain picks it up, which means if you do it correctly, your brain picks it up correctly. If you do it incorrectly, your brain picks it up incorrectly. So that means if you have things sometimes where you're like, oh man, why can't I stop doing that bad habit? Because you told your brain, this is what you're supposed to do, this bad habit. So the only way to break the bad habit is by supercharging your brain. So if you have something that you sometimes do while playing your instrument, let me get a snap on that one. If you want to break this, and I'm going to show you how to break a bad habit. Here we go. What you need to do is imagine that, now I'm from Boston. So for those of you that don't know, I'm from Boston, and in Boston, it snows a lot. I have not really seen snow in Phoenix. So hopefully you guys can imagine this. So I want you to imagine snow. I want you to imagine snow so high that it's above your head. So this big square is a field full of snow. So this is you. And I tell you that I have a treat for you on this side. On this side, you can get through the snow and lay in the wonderful beaches of California. Or if you get to this side, there's going to be danger. However, I don't tell you where anything is. It's just a snowbank. So what happens is if I gave you directions and we practice going to this beaches, you would get there easily. So if you practice doing it the right way, you would get there easily. Boom, that's the path. So that's the path that we've created, and we shovel through the snow because we created good habits. However, if we're inconsistent, if we're not practicing every day, if we're not doing the right things, if we're sitting at the piano with our backs hunched over, then what happens is your brain picks up all those things and it just becomes chaotic. And your brain becomes confused. So some people, when they practice, they play from the beginning, they make the mistake, and then they practice the mistake. Some people, they play from the beginning, they practice the mistake, they go back to the beginning, and they get back to the mistake, and they go back to the beginning, and they make that mistake. These are two things we want to stop doing. And this is why writing down your goals is going to be so important. What the mega mind masters like Miss Janie and myself do is we start at the problem. If you can write down where the problem spot is and start from there, it will make your practicing so much better. And this, my friends, is how you supercharge a pathway. And one good way to supercharge a pathway is by having a magic number. So a magic number has to be some form of number that's in a row. So let's talk about the magic numbers. A magic number is a number that is your age. So let's see what magic numbers we have here. All right, Israel is 3. Abraham is 13, cool. Oh no, Israel is 7 now. Oh, now he's 1. He's going backwards in time. All right, good. All right, so if you have these as your magic numbers, these are good, right? Another magic number you can have is your grade. So let's write what grade you are in. So what grade are you in right now? So this can be your magic number. So then let's do your favorite number. So what is your favorite number? Oh, I'm going to hold Israel to this so greatly. I don't know what number that is, but I'm going to take a screenshot and have him use this as his magic number. All right, so last but not least, we're going to have your shoe size. So what is your shoe size? And while you guys do that, so what I'm doing with the magic number is if I know that I want to play something and I'm having difficulty with it. So if I go back to that Go Tell Aunt Rhodey song and I'm playing, I start at the middle of the second line because that's where I have problems. So then I play, every time I play it, I do this. Oh. Oh. So then I'm going to use my favorite number for my magic number today. Because if I use my age, we'd be on this call forever. And if I use my grade, we'd be on this call forever. So my favorite number is 7. So that means in my brain, I tell myself I have to do this 7 times correctly. For the advanced people that want to get better faster, you got to do it 7 times in a row. So that means if I play, that's 1. That's 2. Nope, gotta start all over. That's 1. So you're trying to start all over and make sure that you do it 7 times in a row, or for some of you, you're doing it 9 times in a row. For some of you, you're doing it 10 times in a row. And if you're Israel, you have to do it, let's just say 3 trillion. I don't know what that number is, but we're gonna call it 3 trillion times in a row. So we've talked about goals, 2 snaps. We've talked about dividing and conquering, 2 snaps. We've talked about supercharging your brain, 2 snaps. And now last but not least, or not last, but we're gonna turn it over to Ms. Janie, and she's gonna talk about some tools that you can use.
Okay, tools. First tool, have a pencil. Second tool, have a pencil. Third tool, have a pencil. And we'll just add one more just to the party. So pencils are important, right? Because in order to know what you went over in your lesson, to mark off any places that are trouble spots, have a pencil. There's so many times where I've had students have 2 pencils, none of them are sharpened, so that doesn't work. So sometimes having backup pencils, make it your magic number, maybe 7, have 7 pencils. That way you're more likely to be really ready. So one thing, all on the tools, having everything ready makes it so much easier to practice, right? And so having pencils, having your notebook, having things that you're writing in. So pencil, notebook, and your music, always having your music out and prepared. Pencils, notebook, music, all out, and don't put it away so that when you come sit down, you're ready to practice. Those are all tools that you could have. For those of you who are string players, having your tuner. So how many times do you probably sit down to play, it's not tuned? And I'm sure, I don't know if you know the difference of, am I playing this note right? Or I'm a pianist, so I don't have to deal with tuning. But those of you who need tuners, having your tuners ready. For pianists, it's just making sure you have all of your setup right, and that includes many pencils. And so one thing that I did too is setting up your station. So one of you had said set up. How many of you ever think about setting up the area that you're going to practice? Is that something you've ever thought about? Yes or no? I'm going to see. No, no, no. Okay, this is one thing that changed my practicing even now as I practice as a teacher. I have kids, so having my station set up where I go to practice, and that's my time, is important. So I have 2 bowls I like to have at my piano. So when Kirk talked about sections and having your tools, I include sometimes these as part of my tools, because practicing is not always fun. You already want to learn the piece. You want to get to that part, right? So a lot of you saying, so I guess, yes, awesome. Snacks, that's a good one. But so I have these bowls, right? And I have my sections in my piece. So whether you are on a short piece and you have measure numbers, or you have sections, writing those sections down, whether it's in A or B or C or in numbers. So for measure numbers or section 1, section 2. So I have these bowl of numbers, and for my sections, say if I pull out a number, I pulled out number 3. So I take that number and I put it in this bowl. So I'm going to play that section. So when you have it, and then I'll play that however many times is my magic number. So that's another tool you guys could have ready. Your notebook, metronome, that's another thing. So a lot of you say you don't have a metronome, but there's apps. I know a lot of you have a phone, most of you do, or your parents do. So being able to have that every time I practice, that's already up in there. So having these things already set to where if you're doing these exercises and you're trying to play more often during the week rather than once a week, like Kirk said, if you have these things set up like this, even this bowl idea, as silly as it seems, when I practice that measure, I can leave and go do something else. And whenever I have a moment I'm going to practice, I'm going to make it a goal. I'm going to play 3 more measures or 3 more sections of a piece. So I take another section. Okay, I'm going to practice this section. And you could do it however many times. And that day, I've already practiced that measure and then come back to it. So having these tools when you practice is important. Also a pencil where you can mark off what are trouble ones. So in some of my pieces, when I have a section that's extra difficult, I'll actually write that number in that section. Say if it's like section 6, I'll have like 4 pieces of paper that say section 6 because I need extra practice on those ones. So those are just a couple extra tools on top of pencil, notebook, metronome that you can do and use in tuners for having a successful practice and even trying to implement new habits. So for me, a lot of these things I've had to implement over time, these new habits rather than getting overwhelmed, because I get really overwhelmed when I get a new piece. So sometimes when you're writing that goal, you're just setting these small goals, then you have all your tools ready. A lot of times you're more likely to sit down and have it ready rather than scrambling. Where's my music? Where's my tuner? Where's my pencil? And I know your teachers do not like that, but if you had that ready when you were practicing and you guys made that habit already, I bet you anything that when you go into your lessons, you will already have those things ready because you do it for yourself and you're practicing. So that concludes setting the goals and the tools, and I will hand it back to Kirk. Kirk, you're still muted, by the way.
All right, there we go. All right, thank you. So now we have talked about goals, 2 snaps. We've talked about dividing and conquering, 2 snaps. We talked about supercharging the brain, 2 snaps. Now we talk about tools you can use, 2 snaps. So now we're down to the last part, which is writing down your progress, which goes back to this notebook. And I think before, oh, nope. So when you write down your progress, what we're talking about is, what did you do? What did you accomplish? So if you said, I practiced for 30 minutes today, write that down. If you said, I was finally able to use my pinky or my 4th finger or my 5th finger or my 1st finger, depending on what instrument you play, write that down. If you did something 10 times, write that down. So if you were able to play line number 1 or section number 1 or the exposition, or if you're playing a song that's very difficult in this one thing and you have to play 3 notes at the same time, and you are able to play the 3 notes at the same time 5 times in a row. So even if you don't get your magic number, and let's say that your magic number is 10 and you got 4, that is good. The next time, try to get 5. After that, try to get 6 or 7. So you don't have to get your magic number the first time 10 times in a row. So keep that in mind as well. And then your streaks. Streaks are always cool to write down. So for example, if you practice for 7 days in a row, you wrote it down, and you just imagine this. I used to love writing down my streaks, so that if my parents told me that I didn't practice, I would just take out my notebook and say, this says that I've been practicing for 22 days in a row. I've been practicing. So you have proof because you wrote it down and you've been keeping track of your streaks. And you could also keep track of your records. So for example, if you were able to play all of your scales in one day, or actually start from the beginning, so in one day we're only able to play 2 scales. The next week you can play 5 scales. And then the next week you can play all the scales. Then you're able to write down and remember that. I think the Lous have a question. They raised their hand. Can you please put the question in the Q&A? Or you can also put the question in the chat as well. I'm not sure if that's Mr. Lou or Miss Lou who raised their hand, but remember, you can always put questions in the Q&A, or you can put questions in the chat as well. So these are things that you can write down for your goals. And I'll also tell you, and I'll show you guys this. So this notebook right here, you guys can't see my notebook, can you? All right, let's do this. So this notebook right here, if you're in the collective, if you are one of my students, I write down things about you guys all of the time. And so it makes me remember what is the great things that this person did. It makes me remember what are the things that this person has to work on. It makes me remember I need to make sure that if we're doing cello ole, I have to give the cellist an opportunity to play it from the beginning to the 3rd section. So things like that. And even if you're doing things that, I don't know, maybe you were talking a lot in rehearsal and I had to speak to your parents, I write it down. So that way I start to remember, does this person have a streak of speaking and interrupting people all of the time. And then we have that conversation. So whenever you guys were saying, why does he remember everything? I don't. I just write it down. I just look at it later. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. And remember, you can write down your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and Miss Janie will see that. Now, I have one last question for you guys. And the question is going to be, what is a tool that you're going to start using this summer? So what is a tool that you're going to start using this summer? All right, I'm happy to see these notebooks taking a lead. And I'm actually good. Maybe I'll give you guys 5 more seconds, 4 more seconds, 3 more seconds, 2 more seconds. All right. So as you can see, I'm happy that a lot of you are going to start using this notebook. This notebook will seriously change your life, and you can actually also use this in school. So this is something that you can use in school. You can, if you like working out, it's something that you can use while working out. So no matter what it is that you want to do in life, you can start to use this notebook to keep things in line. And I'll tell you guys a little secret, which is when I first started Sounds Academy in 2014, I have these composition notebooks. And so with these composition notebooks, they all have a year on it. And with the year on it, what it tells me is what was Sounds Academy doing in that year? Who did I meet? What did I learn? And when I started to learn to like just write down these things beyond, so I learned doing this in practicing in the music, but then I translated it into my job, and it makes doing my job that much more fun, and I get to do new goals, which I think is always cool to do. All right, so now I want to give some final tips. So, let me stop sharing the poll. All right, so here are my final tips. So you guys might even want to write these down in your notebook, that your new found notebook that you're going to start doing. And if you don't have a notebook yet, you can write it down on a piece of paper. And if you don't have a piece of paper, you can take a screenshot, which is something I could not do back in my day. But here we go. So these are going to be golden tips. Start with a warm-up. Start with a warm-up. So what is a warm-up? A warm-up can be a scale. So that means before you just start playing, play a scale first. For those that are just beginning, a warm-up can be, I'm going to play on one string for my magic number. And I'm going to make sure I don't bump any other strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that can be, so everyone, no matter what level, no matter what instrument, has a warm-up. You can also count stretching as your warm-up. So that means if you are playing Haydn cello concertos, you have a lot of muscles that are being used. Stretch those fingers out. Stretch those arms out. For you piano players, stretch that back out. Roll that neck from side to side, chin to the left, chin to the right. So warm up your body just like an athlete. I will tell you, while we were in college, we would wonder, why is it that the basketball players and the football players got free massages and we as musicians did not? And we're the ones playing Nutcracker every night for 2 weeks in a row. Yes. So, yes. So take care of your body. Next is going to be listen, listen, listen. Back in my day, in Boston, with all of the snow, the only way for me to listen was to go to New England Conservatory and go to the listening library. And I had to go and walk down the street, and I live on a hill, Wellington Hill Street, go to Blue Hill Avenue, take the 33 bus to Forest Hills, take the train to Ruggles, walk to New England Conservatory from there in the snow every day. It even snowed in July. Okay, that's not true. But the point is, that's what I had to do to listen. You guys have YouTube. You guys have Pandora. You guys have Spotify. Any other suggestions? What else can you listen to songs on nowadays? I'm sure you guys know more than I do.
Don't say TikTok.
Oh. So you guys have all these things that you can listen to songs on. So listen to the songs. The more you can listen to music, the better you can get at music. So, Sounds Academy website, Israel for the win. Yes, we have examples on the Sounds Academy website of songs you can listen to as well. And so and it goes beyond, if you want to listen to more than classical music, it's so that you can figure out, how am I going to play these songs? I remember I played this song named Kol Nidre, and Kol Nidre is a Jewish song. And I just listened to a whole bunch of Jewish music so that I can learn, like, what is it that this is supposed to sound like? So someone said SoundCloud, that's another good one. Sonos, that's another good one. Did I say that right? Sonos? So yes, so use that to your advantage. Listen. Now this is for the advanced people in the room. These are for the superheroes in the room. These are for the people that are really trying to get excellent. Record yourself. If you start to record yourself and listen to yourself and watch yourself, it fast forwards your playing. It fast forwards your development. Athletes do the same thing where they watch themselves in games. They do the same thing where they watch other athletes in games. So, and meaning themselves against the athlete. So with you, if you're playing in a group, like, watch yourself with the group. Do you do a good job of making sure that you don't play loud all the time and you're letting other musicians have a chance? And then you guys have cell phones, so you guys can use that to record. You guys have cameras on your computers, on your tablets. You can do that as well. And then, of course, during the concert, I know that your parents are also recording. So after they're recorded, now, here's the thing about the recording yourself. Some people don't like it. So some people absolutely do not like it. But once you can do that, you can begin to develop yourself there. All right, Oren and Adam, I'm going to tell your dad to buy you a cell phone so that you guys can record yourself practicing. But that's only if you're going to practice, Oren and Adam. So I'm going to have the conversation with him to make sure that you guys get a recording device so you guys can hear yourself as well. All right, so any questions that you guys have before we close out here? Oh, good. So Oren and Adam now have a cell phone to record. Oh, wait, when you record yourself, you can also hear all the good things you are doing. Yes, that is very much true. So when you are recording yourself, like, listen to those great things that you're doing and keep on doing that stuff. Can you play for us? That's a good question. I'm going to play for you guys in the next session on Monday. And we're going to have a good time, because what's going to happen is we're going to play games, which means that you're going to have your instrument out, which means if you did not make a comment today and if you did not answer a question, I'm going to make sure that you get to play. All right, so that next session is going to be the Art of Practicing Part 2, and it's going to be the games. So we have so many games that we're going to do for you guys. It's going to be very awesome. I have one more thing to send you guys. Oh, Janie, there's a question in the Q&A. Can you please look at that?
What types of music does Sounds Academy have? Kirk, do you want to answer it live?
Yeah, I can do that. So what type of music do we have?
Yeah, on Sounds Academy. What type of music does Sounds Academy have?
Wait, who asked the question?
Avriana Clark.
All right, hold on. Avriana, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
All right, can you ask me that question? So when you say what types of music do we have, do you mean what instruments or do you mean what?
Like genres, you know?
Oh,
Different types of music.
okay, good. All right, so we are classically based, meaning all the stuff that we learn in the beginning, we do classical music on. But as you get better and better, last year we played a song called Don't Stop Believing, for example. And with Don't Stop Believing, that was a rock song. We've also played Coldplay before. I don't think anyone on here, Anaya was in Sounds of Tight when we did that, but I think she was 5 or 7. So we've done things like that. We've also have some of our students play gospel songs, R&B songs. Oh, we played at the Crescent Ballroom too once, and we did the Beatles. We played songs by the Beatles as well. So if there's a student that is practicing and doing what they're supposed to do, oh, bluegrass. How can I forget bluegrass music? So we've done fiddling and bluegrass as well. We've done Star Wars. I blame Israel and Abraham for not reminding me that one. So we do movie music as well. So we do all types of music. If it's music and it's out there, I want to do it. And if you're the type of person that practices and you're the type of person that works hard and you're the type of person that can be focused, then we have this group called the Collective. And in the Collective is when we start to play with each other. And you play piano, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that means there's piano parts in the Collective as well. So that means you get to play the piano part for Star Wars, for example.
What? But I don't even watch Star Wars.
You don't need to. Oh, well, don't tell anyone yet, but we're going to do Harry Potter as well, but we'll save that for next year. So thank you for your question. And then how many concerts have the Collective done? Whoa, the Collective in a year? Are you asking me that in a year or in all time? All time, okay. I have absolutely no idea. I know, I would say, so we've been around for 7 years, so I would say at least 70. So in different combinations. So Collective, sometimes the huge group, the whole group has 25 students in it. However, we sometimes will take 4 students, sometimes we'll take 2 students. Sometimes we'll take 8 students. So it just depends. We were also gonna, if you guys have seen the movie Shrek, there's a song in there called Hallelujah. And oh, wait a minute. Before I tell you that, let me tell you what I was doing in the chat. So if you check the chat, there is a link there that goes to Google Docs, and it's an audience survey. And if you guys can please do me a favor and just fill out the audience survey, it will help us out a lot because we are new to this and we are trying to get better and better at doing these workshops for you guys. And so we want to know, what do you guys like? What do you not like as much? And maybe you might have a suggestion of saying, hey, I wish we had a workshop where we did this. So some of you guys saw the first one we did when we did the one with Zul Dailey. So that was our first time trying to do performance. And for the ones that were there for that one, if you like that one, just say snap, snap. And this is our second one now. So the second one is the art of practicing. So we're trying to get better for you guys. All right, so then Orpheus Male Chorus. So there's a song called Hallelujah, and Hallelujah is by, oh, I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. Who knows who?
I'm blanking on.
Oh my goodness, Hallelujah. I think it was going to the D. But anyway, so when they sing Hallelujah, that song we were going to play with the Orpheus Male Chorus. So the Orpheus Male Chorus was going to sing it, and then our players were going to play the string part. So that's another genre of music that we do as well. All right, any other questions?
You want to tell them what they need for the next one on Monday?
Oh, yeah, so you guys have the poll, good. Let me go back to sharing my screen here. And his name almost came to my head. All right, so with this, you're gonna need a piece of music. You're going to need your instrument, and we're gonna be playing games. If you have things like dice, you might wanna bring that. If you have things, so on my phone, I have a metronome and I have a tuner. Well, you don't need the tuner for the game, but metronome you can use flashcards. So if there's anyone out there that your teacher says, if there's anyone out there where your teacher says you need to learn all your key signatures, or you need to learn all your notes, and then you have flashcards for those notes, then you can bring those notes. And we're going to talk about for everyone. So meaning no matter your level, there's always a game to play to get better and better. So this concludes, I do not understand the question by the anonymous attendee. Are the collective going to do orchestra accompaniments? What does he mean by that? Hold on, since we have time for one more question. All right. What do you mean by that, Abraham?
Oh, are they gonna do that?
Oh, you have two computers around you?
Yeah, my sister.
All right, your sister has to mute. So are we gonna do what?
So are the collectives gonna play with the other orchestras or anything?
Other orchestras like who?
Phoenix Symphony, other.
Oh! Possibly. So yes, we've been working on some great things for that as well. So we have, I think, 7 students that have made it into the Phoenix Youth Symphony. So 2 snaps for them. And so now we're going to be doing a couple more things where we're going to have Phoenix Youth Symphony, some of our collective students, and some other ensembles around the valley play with each other. So I thank you guys once again for attending. Please remember that we're going to tune back in on Monday at 4 p.m. and we're going to be playing games. So be prepared to play. So thank you guys very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend.